Boys, welcome back to another video from the Barbers United Fantasy Football League. We are here to recap last week, week 9, and I'm joined with my man, Braden Parrott. As you guys know, bad luck Braden. And he is the most recent recipient of taking a beatdown from Team J That, only phase.
No.
So let's go ahead. Let's get right into this, Braden. It was a kind of a blowout week in our league here, guys. It was very few close matchups except for one, and that was me versus Braden here. And let's pull it up. Let's jump right in here. We won't waste any time. I won by less than a point, and Braden still barely is talking to me because of it. So I'll let you have the floor here. Say what you want to say. You lose by 1 point. And how you feeling?
So pregame, I was pretty confident. I was predicted to win by, I don't know, maybe like 5 or something. Like, I felt pretty good. And then game started, projections immediately dipped. I did not feel good. I did not feel good at all. I didn't even pay attention to it. I literally stopped paying attention to it. I was in the middle of church, and Jacob pokes me, and I looked down because I saw Kenneth Walker had scored a touchdown or two, and I was down by 1 point. I was like, he showed me who all we had left, and I was like, dang, like, do I want to get back emotionally invested in this? Probably not. But I did. I chose to get back invested in it, and I kept an eye on it, and I was down by 1 point going into the Monday night game. He had the tight end likely. I had the Ravens defense. I felt good because I was like, Jameis Winston or Andy Dalton, they're both pretty much turnover machines.
Yep.
And I was like, likely has to score probably over 10 for Jonas to be safe.
Yep.
And so I was like, I felt pretty confident. Like, likely was pretty much one of the only guys he could throw to, so I was kind of nervous, but I felt good. And then the game started, first quarter, likely scores a touchdown. I was like, it's over.
It was over.
And it's kind of crazy how I figured that out because I actually started likely in another league.
So
and that's how I found out. It was the most heartbreaking touchdown notification for a player I've ever had. And but then my defense came through. Like, I think we were neck and neck, and then the Ravens got a pick. They tipped the ball and got a pick with like 3 minutes left or 5 minutes left or something, and then they ran it in, and I was up by 3 points, and I was like, it's a wrap. Like, they're not going to throw it to Likely anymore. Dalton's not going to do anything, so I went to sleep. And then I woke up, and I lost by 1.
So my side of that story is obviously, like you said, we go into the Sunday night or the second round of games, and I felt like I was going to win pretty easily. I had Kyler Murray going, and you pretty much had Kenneth Walker going. And Kenneth Walker absolutely explodes, goes off, brings you right back into the game. And yes, it was neck and neck between Likely and the Ravens defense. And I felt pretty good because Likely had a great week the week before. I thought he was going to continue that and do a good job. And like you said, I wasn't really even paying attention. I thought I had it in the bag. I get the notification, Likely scores a touchdown. I'm like, boom, game over there. You know what I'm saying? Like, it was it for me. He scored on the first possession or whatever. So I thought it was over. And then I wake up the next morning and you had texted me saying, congratulations on like barely winning, like how you got cheated out. And I was like, dude, what happened? Like, I thought I won easily. And sure enough,
I didn't watch it, but I probably would have been suicidal if I did. Because apparently Andy Dalton scored a crazy garbage touchdown where the Ravens guy like easily could have pushed him out of bounds and let him go because he thought he stepped out. Like, so if this man literally just steps out of bounds, I win. But it was a 41-yard touchdown in garbage time.
And like I told Braden in my text message, it's better to be lucky than to be good sometimes. And so I'll take it. I'll take being lucky. Your team was a better team probably. You probably did deserve to win, but I got a little lucky, and I'll take that because that's all you need sometimes.
I needed it so bad. I mean, that was the biggest moment of my season so far. Like, I went from going from being what would it have been? I was 3-5, so I would have been 4-5, but instead I'm 3-6. Like, I'm not going to come back from this now. So I think
you
that's
definitely
a wrap.
can come back. There's no too far gone because let's move on to our next matchup and let's talk about to infinity and beyond Jacob Weir. And I'm gonna hold my breath and not say too much, hold my tongue and not say too much because I want to talk a little bit more about him in the prediction video. But Jacob was 0-6, and if you had been in that position, you probably would have said you were too far gone. However, he has won 3 in a row. He has had put up big numbers the last few weeks. He looks really, really good. He's actually one of the top scorers in the league, and he gets an easy win over Josh Locke, who for the first time we've had somebody not set their lineup, unfortunately. And he gets an easy win, but it wasn't just because Josh didn't set his lineup, it was because Jacob went off with 152 points. He's now 3-6. He's moved up the standings, and it's looking good for him. So if there's anything I can tell you, it's that look at Jacob and where he was 3 weeks ago, and look where he's at now, and he's happy to be 3-6. You're sitting at 3-6. There's still hope, Braden. That's what I'm going to say. So we don't have
I
to
love
recap
it.
this matchup because there wasn't much to be said there besides Jacob did great. So let's go to the next one. Let's talk about Josh Turley and let's talk about Sam. This one ends up being a 24-point difference in Josh Turley's favor. However, this one was a little bit closer than it looked. Like I was following this one Sunday kind of back and forth, and it was looking like it was going to be good. Unfortunately, by the time it came to Monday night, it was over basically mainly because Tyler Higbee did absolutely
Yeah,
nothing for Jacob
he
or
should have
for
started.
Sam in those second round of games, because after the first round it was pretty close. If Higbee had done 10 points or so, then he would have had a shot for Kamara going into Monday night. However, Kamara didn't do much
Oh,
anyway.
Kamara
So between
was.
Kamara and Higbee not doing anything, it looks like a bigger point margin, but 24 points between the two of them could have been made up pretty quickly. So Josh Turley bounces back from, I believe it was a 2-game loss. His Chiefs do great, and he is back on track here, sitting at 6-3, looking good. Sam, tough loss, but I think he'll bounce back. Do you have anything to say on this matchup, or?
I think Sam's fine. Like he's got guys that like that. It's frustrating as heck because you're like, dude, tomorrow goes off for 44. Like you have the pieces around. Like if you have someone, if you start mooning, he goes off for 18. You're like, dude, I'm winning. Like
Mm-hmm.
you have enough pieces around you to carry. And like if that guy's doing good, you're like, okay, it's a wrap. But no, like
It's
Kamara has a dud Monday night. Eckler has 23. Like doesn't matter.
yeah,
But if he switches out Higbee for Cade, was
yeah,
it Otton?
yeah, yep.
He's like
He's right there. He's
yeah,
right
he's
there.
right there with him.
I think the
So
biggest thing for Sam moving forward is going to be Josh Allen. Is he going to miss
yeah,
time or is he going to be good? He has Tom Brady on his bench. Not been the best option. So I think Josh Allen is going to make a big difference on whether Sam can make a playoff push or not. So we'll have to stay tuned on his injury status before we know more. Let's go on to our next matchup. We had Marcos, Trap Daddy Thatcher versus Hunter Ford. And Marcos comes to an easy victory. Unfortunately, it was not a pretty one for Marcos, only 106 points. But a win is a win, and you take what you can get. Marcos knew when he made the trade for Jamar Chase that it was going to be a tough slate for him the next couple weeks until Chase comes back. He just said he said it himself. He just needs to pull out somehow, just get 1 or 2 wins to keep him alive for playoff time. He wants to win the championship, and so even with the Robert Woods dud and just not a good week overall, he gets a win that he much needed. Hunter is still sitting at 7th in the standings, but he's coming off of, I believe, 2 losses in a row now. So he desperately needs to bounce back. You got anything in this matchup, or?
I think if I'm Marcos, I'm feeling really good. Like you score 21 points less than what you predicted, and you still win handedly. Like not necessarily like his team did anything special, but getting a win whenever, especially when Jamar Chase is out, like you don't expect for the haul, like for the depth he gave up to get Chase, like a win is a win. Like you're just thankful you got the win when he's sitting out. Like you expect to kind of lose until he comes back. So
Yep.
pleasant surprise. I feel like I'm feeling good if I'm him.
So we talk about better to be lucky than to be good, and that can be said about our next matchup here. We have Phillip versus Schutz. You have Schutz here, who now is getting just pummeled, losing a couple matchups in a row here. I think this is 3 or 4 for him, and I feel bad for you, Schutz. I honestly do, because this is one of those instances where last week he scores 150 some points. His team is good, and he loses because he has to go against the best team in the league. And now this week he has a dud week where if he would have scored what he scored last week, he would have got the win. So it really sucks. Like I said, it's unfortunate sometimes that if you're lucky, it can really
Yeah.
change things. Like for me, for instance. And now Schutz is at the bottom of the barrel here. He's now last place in sole possession. I don't think he has the worst team. I think his team is fine, but you have a bad week at the wrong time and you get a loss. And then on the other side, we have Phillip, who, he's been battling through injuries, and he gets a much needed win to kind of
Yeah.
salvage his season and try to get himself out of that last place finish. I mean, if you're Schutz, how are you feeling? I mean, you're 3-6, feeling like you're out of it. Are you saying Schutz is out of it?
I don't think Schutz is out of it. I think he's got some guys that are just not performing, kind of like I had at the beginning of the year. And
He
I
did
mean,
hit a tough bye week. He had a tough bye
it's
week where he
tough,
was
man,
missing some
because it's like,
players.
how do you feel whenever you're predicted to score 101 and you get 60? me. Like, there's nothing you can do.
He had
It's like
CeeDee
for me
Lamb,
too.
he had
Like,
Deontay Johnson, and he had Christian McCaffrey all on bye weeks.
yeah, it's a tough week for him. It comes at a horrible time. Like, I think
Let me ask you this: are you switching now to start? Would you start Justin Fields over Justin Herbert? Because Justin Fields has now, I believe, outscored him 2 or 3 weeks in a row.
Yeah, I think I'm definitely switching to Fields for at least. I think it's matchup based at this point. Like, I think Fields has proved that he can score just as much, if not more, than Herbert. Obviously, so it's like I'm looking at matchups every week. Like, if you have a trash defense that Herbert's playing, then go with Herbert. But if you have a trash defense that Fields is playing, then
Well,
you go with
Shuts, you're in
Fields.
luck then, because in our next video, we are going to look at the matchups, and Braden is going to give you his advice on who he thinks you should sit or start. So, on to the final matchup of the week. We had what was considered one of the matchups of the year, big time matchup with big time bye week implications. Blake Morgan versus Book of Mormoms. Both of these teams, we talked about it last week, were dealing with bye weeks and injuries. It was going to be one where it was going to be a lot of players that normally don't start in the lineups for both of these teams, and Blake gets the win. And Lucas didn't have a bad week. Lucas had a good week. And more importantly, though, on Blake's side of it, he's at 8-1. Nobody else is with. He's got a 2-game lead on everybody. He's pretty much locked himself in for one of those bye weeks. Outside of catastrophic performances from the rest of his team or injuries, he's looking really good. He's got to feel great. And Lucas, if I'm Lucas, you're still number 2 in the league, and I'm not feeling terrible about this one. But
Oh
it would have
man.
been good to get Blake down and have him at 2 losses, and then him and Blake would be both sitting at 2 losses. So these are two of the top teams. Who do you think that this is more? Who do you think this was more important for to get this win? Was it Lucas or was it Blake?
And I think it was probably more important. It meant more to Lucas because if you're Blake, you can afford a loss or two. But like, man, looking at Blake, he just doesn't have a weakness. Like, even at tight end, where I feel like he's the weakest with Goddard,
Dallas
like
Goddard.
Goddard went off, and then he's got Waller chilling on the bench.
I
Like,
think it's his wide receivers. His wide receivers, we're going to have to figure out if DJ Moore is going to be a legit wide receiver too, like he's shown the previous few weeks, or if he's going to go back to being
yeah,
this
and
guy that
maybe his
barely gets any
flex, like figuring
receptions.
out his flex. But I mean, even then, it's like you got Edmonds, you got Saquon
He's got a good
on a
team.
bye, you got Gallup coming back. I mean, goodness gracious, like the man's just absolutely loaded.
He is. So that does it for our recap of our Week 9 matchups. Let's look at the standings as of this moment going into Week 10. We currently have at the top Blake Morgan, Saquad Squad, followed by Book of Mormoms, Trap Daddy Thatcher, Josh Turley, myself, Village Idiots, Hunter Ford, To Infinity and Beyond, Sam I Am, Bad Luck Braden, PD the Great, and currently in last place is Shut. So that'll do it for our Week 9 recap. Tune in a couple of days to see our predictions for Week 10. Thanks, guys.